Thank you for watching ECSO News on Blab TV, where facts matter. With a few storm systems developing off the coast of Africa and in the tropics recently, ECSO News' Amber Southard had a chance to interview two local emergency management experts. Well, we live in Florida and we're in the middle of our hurricane season, so what better than to bring our two experts about what to do during hurricanes onto the show this week. We have Emergency Manager John Dosh with us and Sergeant Andrew Hobbs.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So right now we're kind of in the middle of our hurricane season. We've been very blessed so far, thank goodness, that we haven't had to see anything like that. But if we do have a hurricane that comes into the Gulf, what are some things people need to know or do to prepare?
Well, certainly they need to make sure they have a plan, first of all, whether it be a family plan, a business plan. They need to make sure they've got something in place to direct themselves, family members, or part of their business staff on what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. If you're going to stay, figure out how you're going to stay. If you're going to leave early. Make sure you've got food and water to support the family. Making sure that you've taken care of your home, protecting the windows and doors, and those types of things. It's time now to get some of those things accomplished if you haven't already done so. Don't wait till a storm develops.
Last time I was talking to you, we talked about something very interesting during the tornadoes that we had just recently, the cell phone service. I was alerted through my cell phone.
Right.
How beneficial do you think this could be during a hurricane situation?
Extremely beneficial. That's a fairly new product. It's called WEA. It's an acronym. It's Weather Emergency Alert is what it's called. And it is actually installed in every new phone that's out there on the market today. And the WEA is set off through the Weather Service. And it based upon the emergency that's occurring, the closest cellular tower that might be in that area, that warned area, will broadcast to any cell phone that's touching that particular cell tower. So if, for example, the tornadoes that we had in February, a lot of people mentioned that they got the warning through their cell phones. That's because they received that message from WEA, from the cell tower, because they were in that specific area.
And Sergeant Hobbs, our agency plays a major role whenever we have a natural disaster of any kind. What are some things that the Escambia County Sheriff's Office does to prepare whenever we have a natural disaster?
We work with John Dosh days before it comes in. Well, we're always working together. That's one thing that people don't understand, is we're always training, doing exercises, working at the EOC, and we work on incident command at Blue Angel Air Show and other things. So we're preparing for these seasons all year round. Then here at the Sheriff's Office, we'll pre-position water and food for our deputies so that the officers will be able to function and continue to do their jobs and not worry about those things. We're trying to help them get their stuff situated. We're also going to the, Pensacola Beach, areas, low-lying areas, places close to water, letting people know, hey, you need to evacuate, trying to give them information where they can go if they do decide to evacuate, things like that.
How important is it for the Escambia County Sheriff's Office to kind of have a plan? When everybody else is inside their homes and taking cover, we're not necessarily doing that. We are out making sure everything is okay, making sure people are following rules, following curfews that might be put into place.
We are going to continue to stay on the streets of Pensacola until it becomes a point in the storm that it's not safe for our officers. Then they'll retreat back to our precincts or the Sheriff's Office, and we're back out as soon as the weather allows us. Our job as the Escambia County Sheriff's Office is to make sure that when those people call 911, we respond to the point we cannot. And as soon as we can get back there, we'll be there again. And that's the biggest, that's our job, is to make sure that, just like fire EMS, they're the same way. It's our job to make sure that the men and women who are out there risking their lives can do their jobs and not worry about the small things.
When we tell people it's a great idea to evacuate, you should evacuate, we preach that quite a bit, and they don't evacuate. You just said, I mean, we're retreating back to the precincts, to the main building, to places to take shelter while the storm's passing. You're on your own during that time if you don't heed that warning.
Absolutely. I think that I speak for emergency management, EMS, fire. We're going to get to you as fast as we can, but we also can't become a victim also. So we're going to respond to you as quickly as we can, but there's probably going to be a short time that you're on your own out there. If if you're on a barrier island or you're in an area where the water's risen, we'll get there as quickly as we can. But there will be a point that we will not be able to get to you until after the storm.
And just kind of talking about being on your own, or even after the storm, not having electricity or anything like that, what are supplies people need to have ready at hand and prepared with?
Well, certainly things that they should have in their supply kit should include 1 gallon of water, potable water per person per day, non-perishable food items, canned items, things that don't require cooking. Certainly any type of medications, making sure you've got it for both the family and pets, for those of us that have our pet owners. And, making sure that we've got clothing and all the things associated with, I commonly reference this as going camping. If you're going to go camping, you typically don't have all these electrical items and things like that. Making sure you've got those to be able to survive the event, because after the storm passes, a lot of the utilities are out for a while, and you basically are camping.
We all had the pleasure of being into our EOC, our Emergency Operations Center. We did a run-through after the tornadoes. All the agencies came together. It wasn't just us, but we talked about these emergency plans. We talked about if something like this was to happen. Do you think we benefit from having those once a year, to everybody getting together and talking about this? And what kind of emergency plans are we looking at for our county?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anytime we can get together and review our past responses to come up with better ideas and better methods for responding appropriately, it's a good idea. I mean, to learn from your own lessons. So, if we can do that, and we do perform those tasks, is what we call an after action. We do after every event and every exercise to, like I say, sit down and figure out what went well, what didn't go well, where can we improve. That certainly is going to benefit the community as a whole should we have a real disaster.
What are some things that we learned from the tornado that we might be able to use for our next emergency if we were to have one?
Well, one of our biggest challenges right now is the response community. We train all the time. It's not just a once a year or twice a year type event. It's almost a constant. There's training that's occurring in one form or fashion. One of the big challenges that is going to occur after any type of event is the actual impact to utilities. It takes the utility companies. They've gotten very good at responding and replacing and repairing the utility infrastructure, but people need to understand that does take time based upon the extent of damages. Being patient. Okay, everybody wants their power back on, and I can assure you the power company who's selling that electricity wants your power back on.
I bet they do.
But it's being patient, and for those people that lost their homes and have nowhere else to go, that's a huge challenge, because there is no overabundance of housing stock in the community. So it's not like there's extra houses that we can just that can just be provided either for rent or for sale. Typically, our housing stock stays about level, as far as there's not too many out there on the market that are just empty and vacant for people to move into. So that's a huge challenge for us, and it's one that we continue to have after every event, is dealing with the housing problem.
Biggest piece of advice, or something you can't preach enough to people, just to kind of lead us on?
Preparedness, and the first 72 are on you. People need to understand that it's, disaster preparedness is an individual responsibility. Everybody needs to take heed that this is something that's very serious. They can't wait till the last minute to prepare. You need to make sure that you're ready to go before the storm happens, because you're going to go to the grocery store, and I'm pretty confident you're going to be disappointed, because if everybody goes at the same time, they cannot restock the shelves fast enough, and that supply is not there to provide that. And so it's being prepared ahead of time, having your disaster plan, having your disaster kit before the season starts, especially when we're talking about the tropical season.
Thank you so much. And biggest piece of advice from a law enforcement standpoint when a natural disaster is heading our way?
Get to know your neighbors, because after the storm, that's who you're going to have to lean on. We're going to have to lean on each other. We're all in it together. We need to remember that. The lines are going to be long. We're all in it together. That's the biggest thing we need to remember, is know your neighbors and understand we're all in it together. And we've showed in our community, from the floods, the ice storms, the tornadoes, we are very, very good at recovery and being prepared in our community. And I just think that we've shown that in the past, and we'll show that in the future.
Thank you both so much for joining us. And remember, again, that first 72 is on you. We can't preach that enough. If a natural disaster was to head this way, we do ask you to follow us on our Facebook page or website. We will be bringing you updates as much as we can. Thank you so much.
Now let's take a look at our top trending Facebook headlines. We need your help identifying 3 suspects. On August 11th, the Center Florida Auto Sales on East Olive Road was burglarized. These 3 male suspects wrapped their heads with shirts to try to hide their identity. One suspect used a brick to try to break the window. Then all 3 tried to climb through the window. They were not able to make entry, but did cause property damage. If you have any information, call the ECSO at 850-436-9620 or Crime Stoppers at 850-433-STOP. ECSO investigators are also looking for a suspect who robbed a local bank. Around noon on August 19th, this suspect walked into Members First Credit Union on Fairfield Drive and robbed the teller. He wore his hat low and wrapped a towel around his face to try to help hide his identity. He walked away with an undisclosed amount of cash. Again, if you recognize this man or know anything about this incident, call the ECSO at 850-436-9620 or Crime Stoppers at 850-433-STOP.
A local couple have been arrested for dealing drugs out of a hotel room. Escambia County Sheriff's deputies arrested Christopher Edwards and Summer Weaver last Thursday evening at the Luxury Suites on Pensacola Boulevard. Weaver was also charged with child abuse. The Escambia County Sheriff's Office Special Investigation Unit says it was a tip that started their investigation. ECSO investigators say a search warrant of the room at Luxury Suites revealed more than 60 grams of heroin with a street value of $9,500. They also found $11,000 in cash. While under surveillance by ECSO investigators, Summer Weaver was seen selling heroin with a child less than 5 feet away. The child watched the drug deal go down. Weaver was charged with child abuse. Both Weaver and Edwards face multiple drug-related charges, including distribution of heroin. Each week we like to bring you a missing person segment to ask for your help to help us find the missing people here in Escambia County. Right now we have investigator Stimmel with us. Who'd you bring on the show today?
I've got some missing adults this week, and the first missing adult I'd like to talk about is Madonna Elizabeth Bullis. She's been missing since about 4/2/2016, and she was reported to the Sheriff's Office at 4/8/2016. We've had really no great leads on her disappearance. So if anybody knows Madonna Bullis or knows anything about the disappearance of Madonna Bullis, if they'll contact the Sheriff's Office, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Where was she last seen?
The last place she was seen was on or around the Bill Dixon boat ramp area in Perdido Key, Florida.
Is this the first time she's gone missing?
She has went missing in the past before, in which she was located and everything was okay. But this time we haven't had any indication as to what caused her disappearance.
Okay. Who else do we have?
I've also brought on the show Lacarian Demel Thomas Peters. He was reported missing on 5/30/2016 to the Sheriff's Office. He went missing on 5/30/16. It was reported on 6/1/2016. Again, we've had several small leads, but nothing that actually led out to locating Mr.
Where
Thomas.
was he last seen?
The Lincoln Park, Wedgwood area here in Escambia County, Florida.
And who should people call if they may know where he is?
The Sheriff's Office, 436-9620, and if there is some criminal activity that's believed to be afoot into their disappearance, if they'll just contact either us, the Sheriff's Office, or if they want to remain anonymous, they can always contact Crime Stoppers at 433-STOP.
Now, he's 22. Does he have a history of going missing, maybe as a juvenile?
He does not.
Okay.
So as to what caused his disappearance, we're unsure at this time.
Okay.
And our last person that I brought today was Christopher Noel Trotter. Mr. Trotter went missing on around 7/3/2016, but there was nothing that led his family to believe anything was wrong to begin with, so they didn't report him missing until around 7/27/16 to the Sheriff's Office. So we're behind the curve on this one by about almost a month. And Mr. Trotter does have some active warrants out with the Probation and Parole Department of Corrections for the state of Florida, so I'm sure they're trying to catch up with him too. So if anybody knows the whereabouts of Mr. Trotter, if he'll let us know.
And
The family didn't report him missing for a few weeks. How important is it as soon as you realize a family member might be missing to contact us?
It's very important because some of the things, especially in adult cases, when we're trying to subpoena records such as bank records or cell phone records and stuff like that, those take time. And so if we're already 30 days behind the curve, and then we have to add another 15 to 20 days on it to try to get these records at least, we're sometimes 2 months behind the curve before we even get a starting point to know where to start looking at.
How long does a person have to be missing to be reported?
I mean, there's no set time frame in the state of Florida. If there's some abnormal or strange occurrences that you believe that a person needs to be reported missing, you can always file a missing persons report with the Escambia County Sheriff's Office or your local law enforcement agency. There's some criteria once the report's made as to whether we enter them into NCIC, FCIC, and stuff like that, but each case is going to be different, and the deputy or the police officer that takes the report will make the decision as far as the criteria.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you have any information about these people, please call us here at the Sheriff's Office at 436-9620, or if you'd like to remain anonymous, you can also call Crime Stoppers, and that number is 433-STOP. Our 11-week Citizens Law Enforcement Academy kicked off earlier this month. The class gives citizens a chance to learn more about their sheriff's office. They will hear from different units like patrol, homicide, and dispatch. Recently, the class was introduced to our K-9 unit. Lieutenant Potts spoke to the class about the 14 K-9 teams. The class also received a demonstration showing the dog's tracking abilities and apprehension skills. To learn more about the Citizens Law Enforcement Academy, check out our website at escambiaso.com.
It's all about cleaning up your neighborhood. Another Operation Clean Sweep was a success. ECSO deputies, K-9 Toro, our mounted posse, and 10 Navy volunteers picked up litter, verified addresses, and enforced county codes in Montclair earlier this month. 8 warrant attempts were made and 1 warrant was served. 3 arrests were made and 11 traffic citations were issued, 15 code violations, and 8 address verifications for sex offenders. 15 tons of debris were picked up. Operation Clean Sweep is held in a different neighborhood every month and is so popular it's booked through December 2017. For more information about Operation Clean Sweep or to see a list of scheduled clean sweeps, please head to our website. That's escambiaso.com.
And don't forget Guns vs. Hoses. It's coming up on September 17th. Check out this video that's about to roll. Our sheriff pretty much tells Chief Alexander what's going to happen during the game.
Hey, Chief Alexander, isn't it true that the area the Pensacola Police Department patrols is so small that all of your folks respond on foot in the city?
The sheriff, you're exactly right. That means my guys are going to be well rested for the game. But what I understand, your guys go from call to call. That means they're going to be worn out.
We know, Chief, that you're always looking for material that's funny for the PPD Facebook page. Hey, dude, just post a picture of your team.
We're going to be posting a picture of our team. It's the winning team. And the funny thing is going to be the score.
You know, Chief, we hope that you have your little blankie ready, to wrap yourself up with.
What?
For a nap time after this butt whooping that you're fixing to take on the Wahoo field.
No.
Now, I know the mayor likes little nappies too, so you guys, you'll be in good company. That's why you can't get access to the 7th floor downtown, is because the chief and the mayor are taking the little nappy.
The mayor and I have things in the city under control, so we can afford to take a nap. But on the other hand, you guys in the county are so busy, I don't even know how y'all gonna be able to play the game.
Well, Chief, I guess there's only one way to settle this, and that's right here in Blue Wahoo Stadium.
Guns versus Hoses begin at 9 a.m. Admission is free, and all proceeds will benefit Keeping Abreast Foundation.
For more information, visit the official Escambia County Sheriff's Office Facebook page.
No, really, if you want to know more information, visit the Pensacola Police Department Facebook page.
And let the games begin. I'm Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan, and thank you for watching Ask the Sheriff. This is your chance to ask me any questions you want answered about the ECSO. Our team hits the streets again, and here are some of the questions you asked.
I was just curious if there's any way we can contact the people in the pest division that hand out handicap parking violations, if we can call someone and have them meet us at a certain place to report somebody.
First off, Deborah, all of these ladies and gentlemen that serve in what's referred to as the PEST program are all volunteers. They come to the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, go through a very rigorous background investigation. We put them through a training program here at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, and then they're assigned to our traffic division, which also does parking enforcement. Now, all of the money, by the way, that they generate goes back to the county general fund, does not come to the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. The county then reimburses those officers for uniforms, and of course we help maintain their cars, etc. And they have very limited authority. They enforce only county ordinances. You'll note that they're not armed, etc. They carry a radio. And yes, you can contact them. If you observe, say, someone parked in, our usual complaints are people that are parked in a handicap slot without an appropriate handicap placard hanging on the mirror for the rear view mirror of a car, or they don't have the appropriate license plate and they want to get a hold of a pest officer. But you can call the non-emergency number at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, and that's 436-9620. Again, that's the non-emergency number to Central Dispatch at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. You know, tell them where you're at, identify the location, etc., and ask for contact with a pest officer. And if one's up and running and available and near your area, they'll send one over there, and you can then inform them of what the infraction is.
It's the hardest part of your job.
Hardest part of being the sheriff, I would say it is not, Madison, the law enforcement part. It's the administrative part. And the reason why I say that is law enforcement, so many things that we do, you know, it is cut and dried, and a lot of the things we do is written down for us. The things that I deal with that are not are administrative in nature, and that is hiring and firing practices, you know, counselings with officers who are having problems at work or having problems with their family, and if they go afoul of that, or meaning they have problems to the point that it affects their marriage, and then it could affect their job, you know, it ultimately will fall to me as to what kind of discipline that we take. Do we suspend an officer without pay for several days? Or do we terminate them, meaning do we take their job away from them? That's probably the most difficult part of my job, because I understand that I'm affecting people's lives forever. You could be a deputy at the sheriff's office for a few years or 10 years or 20 years and get in a situation where it requires me by law and by policy to terminate your employment at the sheriff's office. You know, I'm painfully aware that these officers have families and homes to pay, and children that they have in school, possibly in college. And so a decision that I have to make for the benefit of the community as a whole greatly affects this one individual. And so I have to weigh those things you know, very carefully. It's much like being a judge on the bench. Jonah asked, you know, why are you so passionate about being sheriff? Jonah always wanted to go into law enforcement from the time I was a very young man. Couldn't become a law enforcement officer. I graduated high school when I was 17. So the way I could get into law enforcement very quickly was to join the military, because there wasn't an age requirement, if you will. If you were old enough to be in the military, you can serve in any capacity. And so I entered the United States Air Force, became a security police officer, did my first tour of duty, enlisted, and then went back to college and got a commission through AFROTC, and finished my career as a commissioned officer, both in security police and for a very short while with a group called the Office of Special Investigation. It's kind of the FBI of the Air Force, if you will. So I'm passionate about being sheriff because I'm always looking for ways for us to upgrade and professionalize law enforcement in our community. And it's such a dynamic field. If you followed law enforcement, especially in the last year or two, we have something, you know, called the Ferguson effect, which is, of course, an outgrowth or a fallout, if you will, is probably more an appropriate statement, of the incidents that occurred in Ferguson, Missouri. So how do we react to that, to our community, where we have things being said about law enforcement that were proved to be patently false? but sadly have taken root and caught fire, if you will, throughout our community. The hands up, don't shoot, which never occurred. So as a chief executive of a law enforcement agency, I have to find ways from a strategic level to respond to those problems in our community and in communities across the United States, and do it again appropriately and professionally, and again to where we don't worsen a condition or make a condition worse than it currently is. So I find that to be very interesting, and I am passionate about that. Why? Because literally, if I'm not on my game and I haven't selected the right people to serve in positions in this organization, that we don't have supervisors that are appropriately trained and supervised, any community can be a flashpoint. And so why am I passionate about being sheriff? It's because one of my biggest jobs today is to ensure that we keep pace with the changing society and culture, and how do we respond to that appropriately in our community with an understanding that we're peacekeepers and we're bringers of the law, and that's what we're charged with doing. And so, I find that to be, immensely interesting. We've got some things coming in the pike here in the next probably decade. Legalization of drugs that I grew up with that were clearly illegal. I think while I don't, necessarily agree with some of these changes, part of my job is to, again, determine how we operate within that environment. The legalization of marijuana is an excellent example. That's probably just on the horizon. So how do I, operate in an environment where I have officers that are prescribed marijuana? I mean, a kind of unique perspective to take, isn't it? As far as, again, as a sheriff, now I have to deal with the fact that I have an officer being prescribed and taking a narcotic that not that many years ago we were arresting people for. So that's one of the unique, natures and items that we have to deal with in law enforcement. And if you're not passionate about, going after those issues and problems, you're probably in the wrong line of work. So great question, and I appreciate you asking that. And, I always tell folks, the day that I wake up that I don't look forward to coming to the office and facing all of these challenges, making a better working environment for the men and women at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office is the day I probably need to go. That day's not here yet. So thank you very much for the question. Remember, you can also email your questions and ask the sheriff at escambiaso.com. We'll be back next week right here on Blab TV Tuesday night at 8 p.m.